If you need to pretty up your space, don't paint. Not because paint is bad. Paint just takes a lot of work. Get backdrops. There were some tactical errors that I think we could have avoided, and I want to help you avoid in the future if you're in this position. Running your business is super important, but you need to set yourself up in a manner that you can actually close for a period of time so you can make the move happen effectively. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Cotton, and today we are talking about the fact that I am never going to move again.
Oh, hell no!
Now, I do have to apologize for the audio on this one. It's probably a little echoey. This is not a video episode because I am now on the road. I am currently in Warrensburg, Missouri, where we are hosting our first Missouri camp of the summer, and it's going great, but we are just absolutely slammed. We have been so busy, which is why I missed an episode on Saturday. So I really apologize for that. But that's not the only reason I missed the episode. The other reason I missed the episode is I had told you guys, if you've been listening regularly, I wanted to be recording a bunch of episodes ahead of time, so we had them pre-recorded and I wasn't missing a single episode. That was my promise to you, and I've already failed, but I'm going to make it up to you. But I really want to tell you that I have been insanely busy. So this all comes from my move, and I never want to move again after this one. It is something that you lose perspective for, but I think there are some really amazing lessons learned for all of you that I want to just kind of tell you my download of to-dos and don't-dos and just really important pieces of information if you're ever considering a move or if you're looking at moving into your first space, all of those different things. We moved in on June 1st, was our official opening day. And let me tell you, it was a hustle. I think I slept about 6 hours, maybe 7 in 4 days, just constantly working. It was pretty miserable, and it would not have been possible without our amazing families. We had a number of families come in the last couple days to help us get things done. It would not have been possible without my staff. There were a couple that really stepped up. One of my staff members, Jelani and Ahmed and Lauren and Kylie, all really stepped up and were pushing and were staying at the gym with us until 3 and 4 a.m., just making sure that we were as close to ready as we could possibly be. And so it's not something that I've missed, and I'm super appreciative of those people. But I have some really important lessons learned from the entire process. So I want to dive into those with you. So number one, if you are looking at moving, the first thing I want you to consider is the timing of the move. Now, we picked ours because it perfectly aligned with our lease ending. Some would call it like the perfect formula because we had the opportunity where our lease ended on May 31st and we were able to commence our lease on June 1st. And we didn't actually miss a single beat, which I'm going to talk about later. But you need to look at what actually makes sense, because on top of the fact that it was perfectly aligned with our leases where we were never paying any sort of double rent or anything like that, there was also a really important factor. And that important factor was the fact that it also coincided perfectly with our team placements for the new season. So we do our team placements, our meeting on May 31st, knowing that the next day was the grand opening. So we're meeting to discuss teams, but we've been working all day and we're still working that night and we have to send emails. And it just made things an absolute miserable headache, and mostly just because we were exhausted and staff was tired. And, we were sending emails while staff was going back to the old gym to pick up items, and, parents were helping us load trucks, which again, all of the people around us were amazing. Like, nothing I'm saying is a complaint about the humans that helped us make this happen. But there were some tactical errors that I think we could have avoided, and I want to help you avoid in the future if you're in this position. So number one is try to plan your move for a time that makes sense. Team placements is probably not a time that makes sense. Ideally, you should plan it for a time where you can close for at least a week. And I say a week because I think it gives you the best opportunity to actually execute on the move, do what you need to do without killing yourself. And I think we would have been a lot easier if we just been able to spend 7 days purely focused on moving rather than everything else we were doing, which brings me to kind of my point number 2, which is running your business is super important, but you need to set yourself up in a manner that you can actually close for a period of time so you can make the move happen effectively. We did not. So we tried to leverage our resources, and quite literally on May 31st, while we were doing team placements, we were still doing birthday parties in our old facility. We still had business going on. In fact, we just had canceled our tumbling classes for Saturday morning a couple days before, when we realized like we have to be able to take that equipment apart and just leave foam mats and bounce houses in there. And even then it was a significant disadvantage because we couldn't start cleaning, we couldn't start painting, we couldn't do those things because there were people in there for 5 hours, and we could have gotten all of those things out and not been working until 11 o'clock at night, and not having those items over at our facility slowed us down. So if you're planning a move, don't make my mistake and plan to close for at least 7 days. That would have been a smarter option for us. Now, it would not have worked with the timeline because we have to do, in our gym, we do our level assessments and then we do our level practices for 2 weeks before we determine our teams. And because we did that, we had those aligned that last week. If we were to close for 7 days, because we do it that way, we would have only had 1 week, and then we would have taken a week off, and then we would have decided our teams, and it really wouldn't have been effective. So we want to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success when we do things like this. And like I said, I never want to move again, so I don't plan to be in this position, but you never know. I think we may be in our forever facility because it is, I don't know if we can get much bigger and have it make logical sense, but you never know. So I don't ever want to move again, though. So close down for a week and make sure you have the time to execute on the things. The next piece of advice I have for you is, it's an old adage, but it's the measure twice, cut once. I would say measure 32 times to install once. We had a number of moments in time where I had mismeasured something, specifically when I would go off of the plans, or I would like measure something at the gym. Oh, it's this dimension. And then I would get it confused with something else. So finding a way to have that be all like centrally located so you don't make that error. We didn't have any major issues. The biggest problem we had was we have a tumbling area. So we have 2 tumble tracks and a rod floor. We also have a tumbling floor as well. And the first error I made was I was like, oh, we have 100 feet. And that was not true. We did not have 100 feet because 100 feet would actually go into our full spring floor. So that actually ended up not working out. So the original plan I had to pivot. And so then it pivoted and we came up with this other plan. I was like, this is perfect. We have 30-foot tumble tracks, and the tumble tracks are 30 foot and the rod floor is 30 foot, and boom, boom, they're just going to go side by side. It's going to be absolutely perfect. Problem being, the rod floor wasn't 30 foot. The rod floor was 40 feet, which when we got over there and started building everything, I was like, why does this not make sense? And I was like, oh, shoot, we had more rod floor than length of tumble track, which then left us in the conundrum of, okay, well, do we do a 30-foot rod, or how do we make this work? And the sections don't quite equal out to 30 feet easily. So then are we going to do a 28-foot? Well, that's too short. And we had to pivot and adjust, which we were able to do. And we came up with a great solution, and it looks amazing, and we're super happy with it. But it would have saved me more than one opportunity of being super frustrated with myself and just with the situation at 2 or 3 a.m., which is generally when we came to these realizations, and being like, I'm done. I can't do anymore. I need to go home and sleep. So measure, lay it out if you can, tape it out with blue tape, get those things set in so you have a really, really clear plan before things get started, because most of the challenges I had were due to measurement issues. Now, luckily, we had some really amazing just miracles when it came to measurements, and we're super blessed, and I'm very grateful for those moments. One of them was installing our last bit of floor. It's a very weird little kind of tumbling section. It's not a normal dimension. And as we were building it, we had enough other weird pieces from our old gym that like we didn't have to cut any of our springboards. And we were like, oh my gosh, like when they all installed, it was like, whoa, it was the biggest victory. We were so excited about it. Make those measurements though. You'll save yourself a lot of time and energy. My next thing would be, if you need to pretty up your space. Don't paint, not because paint is bad. Paint just takes a lot of work. Get backdrops. And the best place to get your backdrops is from Danny Kahn at PopDrops. He's always been amazing. He's always done right by me. He did all of our banners in the new facility. It was absolutely amazing to work with. He got them there before our grand opening, and I could not be more grateful. Utilize things like backdrops because although there's still work to hang, they are far less work than painting. Painting is miserable. And I'm telling you, we had a paint sprayer, and even then, painting all the walls that we painted, and we still did banners, but we have a lot of paint because we chose to elect, and I still would stick to this decision, to not pay for someone else to do the painting because it was a way to take $30,000 off of what we had to pay to move into the facility. And that made sense. We had enough people who could use rollers and use the sprayer and things to make it happen. So find those things that you're willing to cut cost on and then leverage your resources. But if you need to beauty up your space, don't spend a bunch of time painting. Plus, when you move out of your space, you're likely going to need to paint over those things. This was another thing that we failed to account for, which is how much time goes into just moving out. There's something unique about cheer gym owners. We're kind of like hoarders who have a cheer addiction. The amount of things that were just in our gym from years past, like old backpacks and shoes and just random things that you're always like, oh, well, we might need this, so we save it. It was crazy. The amount of garbage. We filled 2 like mega dumpsters with stuff just moving out of our gym. And it got to a point where we were just like, I don't even know, just throw it away. I don't want to deal with it. But then we had to paint. We had to paint our warehouse. And that took a lot of time, that even with a sprayer, it was still not an easy project. So if you're painting as you move into a facility, you got to keep in mind that when you move out, you're likely going to have to paint over those things. So those big projects that look beautiful, they're just so much easier when you have a banner and a backdrop, because all you do is unscrew it from the wall or cut the zip ties or however it is you had it hanging and fold it up and take it to your new space. So I would just say that is what is one of the things that I loved, was that we had those backdrops and we just moved them over. It was a work to install them. It wasn't easy because it depends on what your grid looks like in the ceiling. But, utilize those things because they make moving in and out so much easier. And I'm so grateful for them. So that was another big lesson learned. The next thing would be allow more time than you think. If you think it's going to take you 5 days, it's probably going to take you 10. If you think it's going to take you 10, it's probably going to take you 20. And make sure you are prepared and ordering things way, way, way ahead of time. So for instance, we ordered a beautiful new front desk. This front desk was supposed to be here a week before we opened. I believe it still has not arrived. That is because obviously we ordered it from overseas and it took a lot of time, but oh my gosh, plan for those things to take way longer than you're expecting, and plan for things to go about 5 to 10% over budget when it comes to moving, because there's going to be unforeseen expenses. And if you do not budget for those appropriately, it's going to hit you pretty hard. So make sure you are planning for more time than you think you need. If you're moving into a space or moving out of a space or moving spaces, whatever it is you're doing, a lot more time than you think you need. The last point I have for you is it is rarely a mistake to make sure that your space is beautiful. There is a feeling of being in a space that looks great, that shows that it is taken care of, that shows that it is treated as if it is a high value asset. When you treat your gym as if it is highly valuable, your clients will view it naturally as more valuable. Have a space that is well taken care of, functions well. Even if you have a tiny little lobby, make it as beautiful as you can. Spend a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra energy to make sure it's painted well, or you have beautiful banners, you have some decent lighting. It is worth the money. It is an intangible return that you are going to impact people's mental state when they're in your space. So make sure that you are taking advantage of that. I've had so many people who walked in and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And it is. And that was one of the first things we said when we walked into the lobby too. That goes a long way. Is it a deal breaker? No. But if you can, we've always tried to spend time working on our lobby. And honestly, people have asked why we moved. One of the biggest reasons we moved is we had spent years in our space, our old space, over 12 years. And our landlords refused to give us tenant improvement allowances still when we were renewing. And we were like, this carpet hasn't been replaced for 10 years or 12 years. And probably before that, it was there before we moved in, and it's ugly and it's tearing up and it looks bad. And you're not going to give us any credit towards doing that. You're not going to help us pay for that. It's your building. And so those were the things that kind of added up to make us say, you know what, we're going to start looking for another opportunity. I 100% believe it was worth it. I know that it was the right play, even though it's scary, even though we're in a higher rent, and even though we, need to fill it with more people, and even though we're at the time of year that sucks, which I think is going to be my other episode, which is I hate this time of year because it's the time of year that you get the text messages from people who say, hey, we're quitting and we're going to go to another gym, or thanks, we love you, but we're leaving. And I know there's lots of gym owners going through this stuff. We're still small enough that every one of those departures still hurts. It still stings. It still impacts you mentally and emotionally. Even if people go about it the right way, you still have feelings. You're still a human being. So that'll probably be my next episode, kind of talking about that and how I process through when I'm in those circumstances, and how I help my staff process through, because they also are going through feelings and emotions when those kind of things happen, and how I stay focused on the good. I also think I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about, if you follow us on social media, you know that we made the switch to D1, and that was directly due to numbers. And I guess we could, obviously, if people quit, then we could be D2, but that'd be a pretty big amount of people quitting. But yeah, we're in the D1 division, and I'll talk you through kind of what took us there and how we're starting the season to be as competitive as we can possibly be, and maybe give you a little bit of advice from the coaching perspective and the team placement perspective of things that I'm doing. So yeah, that's where we're at. I am going to be headed to bed. It's 11 p.m. We've been coaching for a full day, just moved into camp yesterday, doing choreography and all these amazing things here. So we're tired. So I'm going to get some rest. I'm going to record another one of these episodes tomorrow. I appreciate all of your patience. I'm sorry that I missed that Saturday episode. I'm going to do my absolute best to not miss any more. Thank you all for your listenership and for being fans. I didn't talk about it in the beginning, but if you're listening to this right now, you've got to get registered for our Dallas conference. We've only got like 20 tickets left, and I want to see you not miss it. There's going to be a while before we do another actual big conference like this, so I wouldn't anticipate you're going to see another one. You'll see one for sure within the next 12 months, but I don't know what you're going to see in between that. We've got some really cool things we're coming out with, and another large-scale conference might not be in the mix. So just kind of heads up on that. If you're looking for a big conference, you got to get to ours in Dallas this summer. All right, everyone, thank you for listening. And with that, we will catch you on the next episode.